Hello number ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking, and today we're gonna talk about my personal experience with Olympic fencing. Alright, well you know that on my channel I often talk about swords and I talk about practicing with swords and everything, and I think that most of you know by now that I have had 3 years of experience in Japanese Kendo when I was in Japan. Roughly speaking 3 years. But I don't think that many of you know actually that I have had some experience with Olympic fencing here in Italy. So let me tell you this story very quickly. You see, when I was a teenager, I was very interested in martial arts and in combat. And I really liked two things. I liked Japanese martial arts, and including like karate, for example. In fact, I was practicing karate at the time. I practiced karate when I was a teenager for around 4 years. And then I was also interested in swords. So this is why, at the time, when I was very young, I started looking into Olympic fencing, or scherma, like we say in Italian. So I went to visit one of these gyms where they practiced scherma, and I have to say that the Accademia Schermisti Siciliani, or Accademia Schermistica Siciliana, is quite renowned. I mean, Sicilians are quite good at fencing. And the idea of learning how to wield a sword was very, very interesting for me. The thing that sort of put me off at first, though, was the fact that the kind of sword that I had imagined in my mind wasn't really this one, or even worse, a foil. It was this one, okay? So the sort of medieval swords, and this is a 13th century Oakeshott Type 12, this was the kind of sword, the sword wielded by knights, the sword wielded by medieval infantry, or even archers for what we know. The kind of fencing that I would have really wanted at the time was HEMA, but not only I didn't know what HEMA was entirely, and I didn't know what historical fencing was, but there was no club in my town. And mind you, there is still no HEMA club in my town, nor in the vicinity. So I started looking a little bit into fencing, but I stopped immediately because I wasn't interested. Now, around a year and a half ago, a couple of years ago, while I was already a YouTuber, because I started making videos around, I think, 3 years now, I've decided, well, I already have some experience in Kendo. Let's just go and have a look at the Fencing Academy again. Let's go and check it out. Let's see what I can learn from it. So I actually started attending fencing, and I did for I didn't manage 1 year, but I did quite a few months, and I went, constantly. 3 times a week I would go there, I would fence. And you know that in Olympic fencing you can choose between 3 different weapons. You've got the foil, the saber, and the sword. In Italian, fioretto, sciabola, spada. And I chose the sword, so I started practicing with the sword, because out of the 3, I have to say that foil, I was never interested in foil. It's like, okay, I don't want to insult anyone who practiced foil, but in my opinion, out of all the styles conceived in the entire history of mankind, foil is the less representing of an actual duel. Foil is just a game, okay? It looks just like playing with toys. Like, I don't like foil at all. It might be elegant, okay, I'll give you that. It's elegant to see, but I much prefer sword fencing or saber fencing, because they are much more energetic. In sword fencing you can actually hit the entire body. So to me that was the most interesting, so I started practicing. So now in the rest of this video I would like to talk to you about, first of all, my personal experience with fencing, what I liked, what I didn't like, and the reason why I stopped practicing. Secondly, I'd like to talk to you about how much I believe fencing could be a good basis for training in preparation for you eventually take HEMA. For example, if you, like me, live in a town where there is no HEMA and you actually want to practice it, but you only have a choice between fencing and Kendo, then which one, having practiced both, which one I think would create a better foundation for either HEMA or Kenjutsu training. Okay, so what you've got to understand about me is that I'm very eager to learn swordsmanship, swordsplay. I'm very interested in it. So I did manage to find some interesting things and some agreeable and suitable concepts and principles that were taught in Olympic fencing. But they do a lot of preparation, okay, physical preparation. So the first month, all we did was like running, doing things with the ball, passing the ball, and all things that are there to, I understand, build up your muscle structure, build up your reflexes. But they were ultimately quite boring, to be honest. But finally they gave me a weapon, which is what I wanted. They gave me a sword. Now, talking about, this is going to get into a rant now very quickly, but talking about the actual weapons used in fencing, if there is one thing I hate, is this kind of grip. This is an insult to anyone that calls this thing a sword, is insulting the very category of swords. Now, luckily, that's not the only thing you can choose, but I did have a little bit of an argument with my fencing instructor at that time, because she insisted that I had to use that grip there, pistol grip. I hate pistol grips, and I told her, I'm like, no, I want to use the French grip, okay? I prefer that one. It's closer. It gives me the idea of that I'm actually wielding a sword, and not that I'm trying to, I don't know, poke someone with a gun with a blade in it, like a gun blade. I wish it was a gun blade. At least it would have been cool. That's like a gun toothpick. But you see, that fencing instructor, she was very, I don't know, she was an okay person, I suppose, but you can never make a either sarcastic nor glib comment to what she was saying. That's the way it is, full stop. And that's not the sort of attitude I like. I mean, at the end of the day, I think you can advise me to use a pistol grip over French grip or over the Italian grip, but although the Italian grip is not really used much more anymore in fencing, even in Italy, it's either French or pistol grip as far as I know. But ultimately, if I tell you that I hate it, I don't like it, it's the one thing I hate about fencing, is that one. Why do you insist on? But anyways, this is beyond the point. So I did use a little bit the pistol grip. I hated every minute of it, and then finally, when she wasn't there, because she kept insisting, when she wasn't there and other instructors were there, they let me choose, and I used the French grip, and it was much better. Of course, the repertoire of attacks is incredibly limited. You can never cut. I think you can cut with saber fencing, but you cannot cut with sword fencing, and never mind foil. Now, kendo and fencing, well, they are very different styles, but as a basis, I think both could be good if you're preparing for HEMA, but it really depends on what weapon you're actually going to learn as far as HEMA is concerned. Because, of course, you know that HEMA is a very big umbrella term, like huge umbrella term. The amount of styles, manuals, schools, and ultimately weapons out there that you can choose, that you can pick, is huge. So if you are going, for example, for saber fencing in HEMA, then it could be a good idea to start your practicing saber Olympic fencing as a basis for that, because you're already used to the idea of using a one-handed sword. You already perhaps used to similar grips, so that could definitely be a good layer. Of course, when you will start practicing HEMA, I think, as you HEMA practitioners will confirm, many things you will have to actually forget, unlearn, untrain yourself, because there are some things that you, for example, when you practice fencing, and to a certain extent this happens also in kendo, you don't even care if people hit you back. As long as you hit them first, that's all that matters, sort of. And that's something that I don't like, and it's something that shouldn't really happen. When you hit someone in a real sword play situation, the best thing that you need to achieve is to hit without being hit. Okay, because if you get a good cut and, for example, open a wound in their neck, but your opponent stabs you in the heart, you didn't achieve anything. So that's not what somebody. If you keep on training like that, if you're like, that's okay, I just need to get the point, then you will naturally develop a sort of blind spot, because you don't even care for those. So there are some things that you will have to untrain yourself from, but there are many other aspects that I think would be good. Now, as far as going back to general aspects and things that could work both in kendo and in fencing, is the concept of tempo. So the idea of there is a certain amount of things that I can do before the opponent actually retaliates. And it's not that many. Of course, you can increase your speed, and you can increase your precision. But still, I sometimes see these videos, and some days I will make some rant or some debunking. And I see these videos of these masters that they're like, okay, you do this, and then you do this, and then you take the hand, and then you turn around, and then you stab him, and then you go back, and then you put him on the ground, and then you stab him again. And the entire time, that lad is doing nothing. It's like you're what, a vampire or Matrix, you know, everything slows down but you're moving quickly. How does that even work? They don't even consider. It's as if your opponent was not an actual swordsman like you, but was a completely untrained, scrawny space walrus. People are going to react, people are going to counter, so there are only a certain amount of things that you can do, and of course styles like Olympic fencing and styles like Kendo, which have a lot of sparring, will teach you to a certain extent and to a certain degree that notion. Of course your footwork will have to be revisited, but still I think that fencing and Kendo have some concept that can be applied in HEMA as well. For example, the Kendo stances, the Chudan no Kamae, the Jodan no Kamae, you know, all these stances, there are similar stances in HEMA as well, and although Kendo has been simplified as far as stances are concerned, if you compare it to Kenjutsu, it still gives you, I think, some good ground foundation. So ultimately, to wrap it up, I believe that Kendo could be a good foundation if you can't practice HEMA, but you want to go for longsword. And Olympic fencing in the same scenario would be a good idea to practice if you want to go to one-handed swords and HEMA saber fencing in general. Alright, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please remember thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more content from the Metatron. It is now time for you to share your opinion. What do you think? Now, as a practitioner, which style would you recommend? Do you think it would be a better ground foundation to practice Olympic fencing, or would it be a better ground foundation to start practicing Kendo in order to then move to HEMA whenever you get a chance to go to a place where there is an actual HEMA club? Also, have you had experiences with Olympic fencing? Do you have experience with Kendo? If you do you agree with my points, or do you have any further information that you want to share with us? I will see you tomorrow, and remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Goodbye.